An old-school kingpin in prison was informed that he had terminal pancreatic cancer, and the disease had metastasized to his liver and kidneys. After hearing this news, the kingpin appeared incredibly calm, asking how much time he had left. The doctor said he had 4 or 5 months to live. Thanks to years of good behavior, the warden had secured him a chance for compassionate release. If his daughter agreed, he could serve his time under house arrest outside the prison walls and live out the rest of his days. Who would have thought that after hearing this, Max would look extremely conflicted because he and his daughter had not been in contact for many years. We're blood, but not family. Not anymore, anyway. Back in his cell, Max took out a book, and tucked inside the book was a childhood photo of his daughter. He desperately wanted to spend his remaining months with her. But who knew? His daughter had long hated him to the bone. Because not long after he went to prison, Maxine's mother died prematurely from excessive alcoholism. Maxine couldn't go to college and married a good-for-nothing who was also a junkie. After their divorce, she raised their son alone. Even though she worked 2 jobs, working herself to the bone every day, life was still incredibly difficult. She even had to split her son's anti-seizure medication into half doses for him to take. Fortunately, her son was very understanding, and that was the only motivation that kept her going. However, the sudden appearance of her ex-husband that day made her already terrible life even worse. He was high on drugs every day, and now he wanted to fight for custody of their son. Maxine, of course, refused. Seeing the two arguing, Sue, the restaurant manager, immediately stepped in to mediate. But unexpectedly, the man was hot-tempered and easily angered, raising his hand and punching the manager twice in the face. This crazy act also directly caused Maxine to lose her job. On her way home, her son's school principal suddenly called. Hearing that her son had been beaten, she immediately drove to the school. Although the students who did the beating were suspended, the incident would also be recorded in Ezra's student file. Therefore, she couldn't hold back and ended up arguing with the principal. These 2 consecutive incidents left Maxine extremely frustrated. Fortunately, her son was very understanding. To ease the pain in her feet, her son warmly brought a basin of water for her to soak her feet in. But just as the boy was about to go back to his room, his mother's phone suddenly rang. It was Max calling. His mother clearly paused when she heard his voice, then quickly took a deep breath. Max said he wanted to spend his remaining days with his daughter. The warden said, "If you sign the papers for me, I can leave here and be with you for my final days." Maxine was furious after hearing this. "You were barely present in my childhood. Now that you're dying, you want to come back and be with me. Don't you find that idea ridiculous?" After saying that, she hung up the phone. That night, after kissing her son's forehead, Maxine went to the bar for her part-time job again. But having lost her job at the restaurant, she was heavy-hearted. Because her son's anti-seizure medication was about to run out, and the income from her part-time job at the bar was not enough. With no other choice, she had to find her ex-husband to see if she could get some child support money. But who would have thought this damn junkie only had $20 on him? Maxine was speechless, cursed him out, and turned to leave. Finally, in desperation, she called the prison. However, before agreeing to let her father come stay, she required Max to agree to a few conditions. She hoped Max could pay her rent and come here as a tenant. Max had a very good relationship in prison. Before he left, another kingpin in prison told him, "If your daughter needs my help, wait for me to get out. No matter what, I will do my best." This was the first time he had seen the daughter he had longed for after 20 years in prison. Maxine's attitude was very cold because she absolutely did not want Max to have a good life before he died, and the reason she agreed to let him stay was purely for the money. For the rest of his days, Max needed to wear a monitoring device on his ankle at all times. If it was removed during this period or if he left this house, he would completely lose his chance for parole. After the parole officer left, Max took out a check for $1,560. He said this was clean money he had earned in prison. His daughter took the rent money and then directly warned him not to bring bad habits like drugs and alcohol into this house. "I've been sober, off drugs and alcohol for 12 years. After Maxine left, Max looked at the house. 20 years had passed, but it hadn't changed at all. Memories flooded his mind. He knew he owed his daughter too much, so he decided to try to make up for the long-absent fatherly love for his daughter in his limited remaining days. During dinner, Ezra was full of curiosity about this strange relative, wanting to ask a few questions but was stopped by his mother every time. Maxine didn't want her son to have too much contact with his grandfather, so she directly sent the boy to his room. Max wanted to explain something to his daughter, but she didn't want to hear it at all, because in her heart, the old man in front of her was just a criminal from beginning to end. That night, Max tossed and turned, unable to sleep. He really owed his daughter too much. But just when he didn't know how to mend the rift with his daughter, His clever grandson suddenly asked such a question. "What kind of person is my grandfather?" Ezra asked as soon as Maxine woke up. Although Maxine thought Ezra's grandfather was very kind, there were many times he couldn't express his true feelings. Maxine saw that the situation didn't look right and hurriedly called Ezra back. Before leaving, the boy still passed on an important message to Max. "Mom said I sometimes remind her of him. That's why I asked." Although Maxine explained that this was just something she said to appease her son, Max's heart was still filled with warmth. It turned out that he still had a good side in his daughter's heart. After dropping off her son, Maxine started making calls for job interviews in the car. But after many calls, the result was still the same. Max, at home, in order to make up for his daughter, called a close friend from many years ago. Hearing that Max was on parole, Hank was very moved. Max got straight to the point, saying he had cancer and only a few months to live. Therefore, he hoped Hank could use the money he had given Hank to open a boxing gym many years ago. Hearing this, Hank looked very troubled because his finances were also very tight at the moment. Most of the students in the gym were trained for free. Hearing this, Max quickly said, "Don't worry about it. That money was originally for you." So Hank doesn't owe him anything. Hearing this made Hank even more embarrassed. After looking at the big gold watch on his wrist, he said he would come see Max to say a proper hello. Because there was no reliable man in the house for Ezra to rely on, the boy was bullied by older students almost every day. They even gave him the nickname Shaky. For some reason, in the past, when faced with such ridicule and encirclement from so many people, the boy was so scared he didn't dare to say a word. But today he was surprisingly brave, even talking back. Unexpectedly, the blonde ringleader pulled out a knife. "Now you don't dare to talk big anymore, do you, Shaky?" Over here, Max was fixing up the house next door when a red luxury car suddenly stopped outside the yard. And the person who came was an old acquaintance of Max from the streets. After hearing that Max was out of prison, he immediately came to visit. Max knew many of the other party's dark secrets. He could have easily told many stories to get a reduced sentence for himself, but he didn't. This loyalty was a thing of the past, so if Max had any needs, he could just ask. Hearing this, Max immediately looked at the house filled with junk and abandoned for years. "Is your cousin still in construction?" Max wanted to ask him to help fix up the house. A few hours later, Max found a bottle of anti-seizure medication in the kitchen cabinet. When he felt confused, Ezra, who had come home early, gave him the answer. "I have epilepsy. Is that like a superpower? They call me Shaky." Hearing these words, Max roughly guessed the reason his grandson came home early. And the truth was indeed as he had expected. "There's a kid who wants to kill me." After learning that his grandson was always bullied by the same kid, Max told the boy, "If you don't want to be bullied anymore, you must find a chance to fight back. And before you learn to fight back, you must learn to protect yourself." During dinner, Ezra once again brought up the topic of his grandfather. The boy really wanted to know what kind of person his grandfather was. He thought his mother would choose to avoid it, but unexpectedly, she took the initiative to call Ezra over to get a photo album. But just as she picked up the album, ready to tell her son his story, Max suddenly said, "I think I need to lie down for a bit." The ambulance arrived quickly. Seeing Max sitting in the chair, Ezra was very worried. The doctors advised Max to go to the hospital for treatment. As for the ankle monitor, they could help call his parole officer. However, Max stubbornly refused to go. They had no choice but to leave. That night, Max still couldn't sleep a wink because he knew his remaining time was short. He had to do his best in this limited time to pave a smooth path for his daughter and grandson. That morning, Max woke up very early. Seeing the prepared breakfast on the table, Maxine was very surprised. "I want to make good use of these beautiful days." Hearing these words, she suddenly understood something. Yes, she decided to confess everything to her son, but unexpectedly, her son spoke first. "He's your dad, isn't he?" Actually, Ezra had long guessed that Max was his grandfather. The reason he didn't say it was because he was always waiting for his mother to bring it up herself. Ezra hoped his mother would give him an explanation. However, Maxine only said 4 words. "It's a long story." At this time, Max was at home fixing up the apartment. His old friend Hank had come to visit as promised. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, their bond was still as strong as yesterday. To gather enough money, Hank had sold the big gold watch he had worn for many years. Maxine felt extremely annoyed when she saw the construction workers appear. She had told Max not to bring trouble. Max explained that many years ago he had promised her mother he would finish that small apartment, but never did. Now, he wanted to finish it so she could rent it out. Maxine angrily said that he was being outrageous for wanting to fulfill a promise to her mother at this time. When Max handed her a bundle of cash, Maxine asked what it was. Max said it was all his money and now it belonged to her. Max assured her it was clean money and advised her not to be stubborn anymore and to take it. He also said he had arranged a job interview for her. Maxine asked again in surprise, and Max explained it was a real job arranged by a friend of his with many businesses. When Maxine asked why he did it, Max simply replied, "Because you're my daughter. It's the least I can do." Maxine told him to stop talking. "I know you're a terrible person." However, she stressed that he couldn't be so easily redeemed. From childhood to adulthood, Maxine had never felt a father's love. Now that he was dying, he wanted to take on his responsibilities, which she found hard to accept for a moment. Then she poured out all the grievances she had endured over the years. Ever since Max went to prison, her mother was drunk every day, completely indifferent to her daughter's life or death. Because all the money in the house was taken by her mother to buy alcohol, she went to school on an empty stomach almost every day. Heaven knows what she had been through all these years. Maxine fiercely told Max not to play the hero here because he was not one at all. She affirmed that he had every reason to hate her. Max knew that what he was doing now couldn't make up for his past actions. He had done many evil things outside, but for his daughter and wife at home, he hadn't done anything he should have. This made him feel like he was living a life worse than death every day. He clasped his hands and begged his daughter, hoping she could give him one more chance to fulfill his duty as a father. Seeing his daughter had calmed down, he quickly took out the money, saying this money was very clean, its origin very clear. He begged his daughter to accept this money. "You can use it to send Ezra to college. He won't be like me, and he won't be like his father." The hatred she had held for her father for so many years, at this moment, she finally chose to let go. That day, Ezra came home early again. It was obvious he had been teased by those bullies again. Ezra's birthday was in a few days, and Max asked his grandson what special birthday gift he wanted. "I want courage." The boy was fed up with always being bullied by others. This feeling really made him feel suffocated. Ezra told Maxine, "You don't get it." Ezra then explained that she let a bunch of idiots rule his life. Because they could rule his life, he blamed it all on his mother. If she had a decent job, if she was around more often and gave him some proper courage, maybe he wouldn't be bullied. Max, seeing the tension, said he would go talk to the boy. Max went into the house and gave his grandson two versions of a conversation in the name of an adult, one for children. Maxine began to explain to Ezra about the father he loved. Maxine said bluntly that Tyler was a good-for-nothing, an addict who only cared about himself. If he truly cared about his son, he would have gone to rehab, given his mother money, visited him, and not slept with other women. Ezra admitted that he knew he loved him, but Max insisted that he didn't deserve that love. Max added to trust him, because when it came to being a bad father, he could write a book. Therefore, Max had a lot to say on the matter. To prevent his grandson from being bullied in the future, Max made a decision. He would teach his grandson how to really fight. However, before that, he needed to apologize to his daughter. She had lived a very hard life, so she didn't deserve to suffer these things. Early on the third morning, Hank's private car was parked in front of the house. Max instructed Hank not to go easy on Ezra, to definitely give it his all. Arriving at the boxing gym, Hank immediately began high-intensity one-on-one tutoring with the boy. But after half a day of training, Ezra was discouraged. If the opponent pulled out a knife, what good would all this training be? Hearing this, Hank told the boy to take off his helmet. Then, he began a live simulated instruction session. Max had found his daughter a decent finance job with a pretty good salary, starting at $42 an hour. Maxine asked about the salary again in surprise. The manager explained that she knew it wasn't very high, but it was a job with a private desk and health insurance. She added that because Maxine had a son, the company had been notified to arrange a work schedule that suited her time. Maxine, still in a bit of a daze, asked, just like that. The manager confirmed she had the job, but whether she could keep it was up to her. "If you screw up, it's on you. You'll have to learn the office software and start next week." At this moment, Maxine's eyes welled up with tears and indescribable emotion in her heart. She couldn't believe her father could find her such a high-end job with such a good salary. Since she still had to work part-time at the bar in the evening, after expressing her gratitude to her father, she entrusted her beloved son to Max. That night, Max's condition worsened again as he started passing blood in his stool. However, he still acted very calm as if nothing had happened, watching TV with his grandson. That night, the two of them talked a lot. Max also skillfully told his grandson about his not-so-good past, while sharing many life philosophies. The most thought-provoking sentence was, "In life, never think about taking shortcuts, or it will surely lead to your utter ruin." The next morning, Maxine hoped her father could consider treatment to spend more time together. But Max said he didn't deserve to live anymore. "You may not deserve it, but we do. Have you thought about that?" Hearing Maxine's words, Max suddenly made an important decision. He would leave this house and take his daughter and grandson on a fun trip. Maxine, hearing this, resolutely agreed. After asking her parole officer for 3 hours of sick leave, the three of them went to the private swimming pool of Max's close friend, Hank. They had an incredibly happy time there, and this beautiful memory would also be forever engraved in the minds of Ezra and Maxine. A few days passed, Ezra's fighting skills had reached their peak, and today was the day he prepared to fight back against the bullies. At this moment, his mother was wearing a business suit, and she was also about to have her own moment to shine. As Ezra was washing his hands in the bathroom, the two students who often bullied him happened to walk in. But he didn't expect that he would soon become the laughingstock of the whole school. Ezra threw a series of punches. Seeing the admiring look from his female classmate, Ezra felt incredibly refreshed. Max was right. You only need to fight back against the bullies once, and they will be completely defeated. Just as he was about to say something, his mother suddenly rushed in. He thought his mother would give him a severe scolding, but the reality was the complete opposite. Although Ezra's fight was once again recorded in his student file, this time his mother was not angry at all. On the contrary, she felt happy for her son from the bottom of her heart. At this time, Max came over from the house next door. After more than a month, the super surprise gift that Max had prepared for his daughter was finally completed. Seeing everything before them, they could hardly believe their eyes. The dilapidated house was completely renovated. Maxine's eyes were now filled with emotion. Max said a house with this configuration, in this area, could be rented for at least $1,000 a month. Just then, the landline in the house suddenly rang. The call was from Ezra's father. After hearing that his son had beaten up the student who often bullied him, his reaction was normal, just a perfunctory praise for his son. When he heard that it was Max who taught Ezra how to fight, he had a real reaction, asking him, "Is he with you and your mom?" The boy happily said yes and hoped his father could come to his birthday party. Maxine asked him who was on the phone. Ezra didn't lie. He not only confessed that the call was from his father, but also took the initiative to admit he had invited his father to the birthday party. Seeing his daughter was about to get angry, Max quickly mediated, saying that the kids are growing up, maybe they should respect the boy's thoughts. However, Maxine was still not at ease. She went to find her ex-husband. She hoped her ex-husband could stop using drugs for their son's birthday party. She thought he would cause a scene, but unexpectedly, he surprisingly agreed. Time flew by to Ezra's birthday. Initially, his classmates were happily playing in the backyard. But when Max, who was feeling unwell, went back to his room to rest, the initially joyful atmosphere changed when Maxine's ex-husband arrived. From his state, it was clear the bastard had used drugs after all. Fearing he would ruin her son's birthday party, Maxine hoped he could leave quickly. Not only did he not listen, but he was also unsteady on his feet, knocking over the grape juice on the table. Seeing this scene, Ezra immediately realized his own naivety. He once fantasized that his father could turn over a new leaf. Now it seemed he was gravely mistaken. Seeing his condition getting stranger and stranger, Maxine had to tell the kids to go play in the front yard. Just when the mother and son didn't know what to do, Max walked out of the house. The ex-husband not only didn't restrain himself, but also used vulgar language to tell Max not to meddle in other people's business and to get the hell back to his house. Although he was old, he wasn't immobile. To vent his anger for his daughter, he used all his strength in every punch. It was as if he heard nothing, still swinging his fists mercilessly until Ezra had a seizure. Only then did Max come to his senses. Max suddenly felt a little regretful. No matter how much of a scumbag he was still his grandson's father. Although his grandfather had beaten his father to a pulp in front of him, Ezra was not angry at all, because, for many years, this was the first time they had felt protected by someone else. After knowing Ezra had returned to normal, Max immediately apologized to his daughter for losing control. He said that at that moment, he only had one thought in his mind, which was to beat him to death directly. Otherwise, sooner or later he would come back to harm them. But now, thinking back, that thought was as stupid as a pig. Just as Maxine was about to get up and go out, Max suddenly called his daughter back. He once again expressed his gratitude to his daughter. He thanked his daughter for allowing him, a sinner, to return to atone, and also thanked his daughter for giving him a chance to atone. He was even more grateful that his daughter chose to let go of the past and forgive him. Maxine forced herself to walk to the door and immediately burst into tears. At this moment, she only hoped her father could stay with them a little longer. Unfortunately, this hope could only be a luxury. Max's condition was very unstable. If it were a normal person, they would probably be bedridden from the pain. The doctor said his condition was now very bad. It could be a week, it could be a month. Although Max had done a lot for Maxine and her son during his compassionate release, he still felt it wasn't enough. It was a pity his time was running out. Therefore, before saying goodbye to Hank, he begged Hank to do him a favor. After he died, he must occasionally visit this poor mother and son. If he could let Ezra work part-time at his place, that would be even better. At this time, Max's expression suddenly became extremely solemn. When Max pushed open the door, he saw the messy scene before him. It turned out that just a moment ago, as Maxine was preparing to take her son to school, a knock suddenly sounded on the door. Opening the door, she was immediately terrified. When Max returned home, the house was already in chaos. As he felt extremely scared, his daughter's figure appeared. She was crying while begging her ex-husband to bring Ezra back. Seeing the terrifying scratch on his daughter's neck, Max's heart ached terribly. Arriving at the ex-husband's private den, Max told his daughter to wait in the car. In a little while, when you see Ezra come out, don't hesitate, just drive him straight away. Let him have the life he deserves. I love you too, Maxine. Never stopped. Maxine understood very well in her heart that this farewell with her father could very well be the last, but she did not stop him, because she knew that once her father made a decision, it could not be changed. At this moment, Ezra's father was like a madman, saying he would take his son across the border to Mexico, leaving this place forever. As soon as the words were spoken, Max rushed in like a god of war. Max told his grandson to go out first. He would be out later. Ezra didn't think much. After her son got in the car, Maxine immediately started the car. The reason she left so decisively was that she didn't want her son to see what was happening in the warehouse. Max initially wanted to beat this junkie to death directly, but after a few seconds of thought, the murderous intent in his eyes disappeared because he had thought of a better way. He was preparing to use his own life in exchange for a lifetime of peace for his daughter and grandson. And the guy on drugs did not disappoint Max. After just a few blows, Max had completely stopped breathing. He was not worried that after his death, Tyler would escape prison, because before entering the warehouse, he had removed the monitoring device from his ankle. Very quickly, the shrill sound of police sirens rang out. Even if Tyler wanted to escape, it was already too late. Although he was a sinner who was absent during his daughter's upbringing, in the final moments of his life, he used all his strength to complete his redemption for his daughter. He knew very well that he could not make up for his past mistakes, but he was willing to use the price of his life in exchange for his daughter's future happiness. This father's love was not a gentle, delicate protection, but a love that carried hurt and regret, yet was incredibly firm. And this special fatherly love also helps us understand the true meaning of a father's love is like a mountain. Sometimes, this mountain will be slightly tilted due to past mistakes, but the support it provides at critical moments is enough to withstand all the storms in the world. No matter how many difficulties and failures a father encounters in life, their love for their children will always be the greatest strength. Just like Max in the film, although his life was about to end, the never-fading light of his fatherly love will still shine brightly in the river of time. It is like the last maple leaf that refuses to wither in the deep autumn. With its brilliant red color, it has completely added a warm hue to his daughter's world. It is also like the last meteor streaking across the night sky. Though it burns out, it leaves her with the brightest hope. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching. What do you think of this film? Please leave a comment below.